Hey guys, and welcome back to the canopy build series. So far we've already fully insulated this new canopy setup, and we've added this monster of a fridge, the big Bushman 130 litre upright, which is pretty awesome. If you haven't checked out those episodes, I will link them both in the description down below. But today we're moving on to the bit that I'm looking forward to the most by far. We're going to be constructing a full slide out kitchen build in the rear of the canopy here. When it comes to canopy fit outs, I find it's really hard to go past a good slide out system. It's just quite an effective way to use the space, especially for shorter canopies like mine just here. This is only 1650 long, and I've already occupied a lot of that with this fridge here, so I've only got about this much space left to build my kitchen. And on top of that, I'm planning on putting something pretty special in this zone just here, which essentially only leaves me with about this much space. So the plan for this new slide out kitchen, I was going to say it's simple, but it's probably not going to be that simple. But my rough idea is going to be to have a small permanently mounted bench just in on the rear section here, similar to what I had in my previous canopy setup that did work really well. And I guess for this new setup, I'm trying to bring across the ideas that did work well in the last setup and hopefully make them even better for this new build. So below that small bench will be another slide out bench that will come out about 800 mil, and it'll be about 1/2 meter wide. Underneath that bench, there's going to be two more smaller drawers that slide out kind of this way here. And those are going to be to store those things that are kind of inconvenient to find homes for, like cutlery, barbecue utensils, alfoil, glad wrap, resealable bags, and things like that. And then below that whole module, you guessed it, it's going to be another slide out bench that comes from the very bottom. And that's going to be pretty much as low as you can make a slide out bench in any canopy setup. That is something we are both really excited for with this new build, to have that nice, low and practical bench. And there's going to be no drop down legs underneath, so it should be a nice, quick to use and practical setup. So I'm absolutely pumped to get this build underway, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is installing these 2 lengths of 50 by 30 aluminium box tube in on the floor of the canopy, something like this. Now, most of this kitchen build is going to be constructed using aluminium because it's super lightweight, it's nice and strong, but it's also very easy to work with. These 2 beams are going to act as the foundation for our entire slide out kitchen. How I'm going to bolt these through the canopy floor is going to be a little bit different to what I've done in the past. Obviously, when I used to have the lift off canopy, we did have that luxury of driving the vehicle out and actually accessing the bottom to do up bolts. With this, obviously, chassis mount canopy, this isn't going anywhere. So I'm going to be using a tool that I've got no experience using, which is a riv nut tool. And that's going to allow me to put some nice threaded riv nuts into the floor of the canopy and bolt those beams in place using those. So those 2 aluminium mounting rails are now complete, and I'm just going through the process of very carefully measuring out all my placements to make sure it's just right. I've only got one go at this, so it's worth measuring 5-10 times and drilling once. Now, if you were just watching that footage and thinking that I wasn't drilling those holes in the center of those beams, you'd be correct, but that's actually by design. So essentially, on the floor of this canopy, there's a lot of channels that run widthways with some little raised sections as well. And what I don't want to happen is I don't want to mount these rails essentially just across one of those raised sections, because it has a chance of tilting in or out, and those runners just would not be happy with that. So what I'm doing instead is I'm making sure they cross at least 2 of those little bumps so they sit nice and flat. I did also take my stepped drill bit, and on the top of all those holes, I've just blown those top holes out to the right size to fit my 10mm socket down to actually do up those bolts underneath. So the next step for me now is to take my trusty liquid chalk marker, drop it in from the top and actually mark out the position of just these front 2 holes. I'll then whack those riv nuts in and loosely do those bolts up. I'll then measure the exact space between these two front rails here, jump into the back, make sure the back is exactly the same. That's the most important thing. You can't have your draw runners going out or in, it just won't work. Once I'm happy with the back position, I'll then chuck those bolts in as well, and then I can bolt the rest in place too. Wow, how easy is that? This is my first experience using these riv nut tools. I did do one quick test on an offcut of aluminium over by my bench before, but that is the first official one I've ever done in the canopy setup that's going to be used. And I'm honestly blown away by how simple that is. That's a piece I bought there, Kango brand from Bunnings, just goes on your regular drill. Can do a variety of different riv nut sizes. I've gone with M6 for this canopy setup. I've bought a bunch of king chrome little riv nuts just like that, and now I've got a nice strong M6 mounting hole in the floor of the canopy. Anyway, a few more to go, so I better get back to it. Alrighty, it's time to add some draw runners to those two new mounting rails, and we're doing this properly. I've bought some very heavy duty locking draw slides that can support 227 kilo. These are Dun & Watson brand. I paid $180 for the set of two, which is quite pricey, but they should definitely last a test of time. They're actually the same ones that I used in my previous canopy setup, so I have confidence that they should last me for a long time to come. Now, I do want to slightly customize these draw runners too, because I found with that last kitchen build in the previous canopy, it was a bit annoying to only have these little orange things to grip onto when you slid that bench out, because it did weigh a fair bit, and I'm expecting this new one to be quite similar. So what I've seen some people do online is actually remove the locking mechanism from one of these runners and essentially turn it into a system that only locks on the one side, then add a handle to try and assist with opening that module. So I'm not really too sure how to do this, but essentially what I'm trying to do is remove this internal locking mechanism here. And I believe if I just remove this little rivet there, this one down here, and maybe that one in the middle there as well, hopefully this whole locking module should come away, rendering this to be a nice free sliding draw runner, or I might just completely destroy my $180 draw runners. That's also a possibility. But to try and minimize my chance of destroying them, I am going to test out this procedure first on these much smaller and much cheaper locking draw slides, also from Dun & Watson, so I'm hoping it's a similar procedure for both. Well, that certainly wasn't a glamorous job. The grinder had to come out, which I was sort of expecting it would in a way anyway. As soon as I got halfway through drilling out these little rivets, they just started spinning around indefinitely. So I had to take the grinder and lop the little head off the other side, allowing me to remove that locking mechanism. And the job has been a success. The locking mechanism used to be behind there, just there. Now there is nothing. And now this operates like a regular non-locking draw runner. But one thing to keep in mind is that that little locking mechanism was the thing that was keeping the draw runner from coming out entirely. So now it's free to just come out at a moment's notice. It's not the end of the world because the other runner will retain its locking mechanism, and that should do the job of keeping that the whole unit from just falling on the floor. But it is something to keep in mind that the unit probably will want to just twist slightly at the very end when you get to maximum extension. So the next step for me is going to be to perform that same operation on one of these larger draw runners, and fingers crossed it's exactly the same. Well, I tell you what, that is not a very fun job to take a grinder to my brand new, very expensive draw slides, but it was a success. Grinded off those 3 little notches, and now we have a very heavy duty, non-locking draw slide, so very happy about that. And also these larger draw slides do still have that restrictor built in, so that piece won't come sliding out at a moment's notice, so that's pretty awesome. So yeah, pretty happy with that all around, and can't wait to get these installed in the canopy, so that's next up. So it's a brand new day. These projects can go over a couple of days, I found, but my runner's now fully installed and I'm very happy with the result, especially with that single little push down to slide these runners out. They come out about 813 millimeters, I think, and they are incredibly strong. Very happy with how secure everything is. I did use a bit of Loctite on every screw I've put in so far, just so I can be confident that over all those corrugations this car is going to be subjected to, that they shouldn't rattle loose over time. But now that my foundation is complete, it's time to move on to constructing the actual kitchen bench module that's going to connect to those runners. To do that, I've bought an old friend, my 25 by 25 millimeter aluminium box tube, and once again I've bought it in black, so it looks pretty neat and shouldn't need too much finishing to look at least semi-professional. To join everything together, I have bought a whole set of these connected joiners, right angle ones. There's little corner brackets here, a piece for pretty much every single use case, and believe it or not, we're going to be using every single one of these joiners to build the kitchen that I've essentially got planned. If you've watched my channel before, you'll know that I'm a big fan of those joiners. I've used them on a lot of projects in the past, and they're just really good to work with and pretty strong as well. Anyway, I've got a lot of aluminium to chop up, so let's get started. I tell you what, for all my previous DIY projects, I've always cut this stuff down using my trusty grinder, which gets the job done, but is a little bit tedious. Just bought this drop saw a couple of days ago, and I am very impressed. Look at that cut. It's like it came from a shop like that. Fantastic, and it makes it so much faster because you just have to mark one point, drop the saw down, and get a perfectly clean cut. Anyway, I'm very excited. That makes things a lot easier, but there's a lot of cutting to do, so better get back to it. Now, if you're not familiar with how connected aluminium works, it is extremely straightforward. You just buy lengths of this 25 by 25 millimeter aluminium. Comes in silver and black. I bought black, so I thought it might look a bit nicer in the build. Then you just buy a collection of these joiner pieces to suit whatever you're trying to make to connect it all together. And once you've cut your aluminium down to size, you'll take the required joiner, get your length of aluminium, literally just poke them into the joiner like so, and then to seat them the whole way, you just give them a bash with a mallet or a hammer. This is my camping mallet, gets the job done really well. So now I'm ready to assemble my kitchen bench, and this is going to be where I find out if I've indeed bought the correct amount of these joiner pieces. I was trying to just calculate it in my head. I think I've got it right, but I always seem to be at least 1 or 2 short. So we'll see how we go. There we go, the framework for my main bench unit is officially complete, and I'm honestly really happy with how it's turned out. Those connected joiners make it so easy to get all my angles nice and square, so this should slide in and out no trouble whatsoever. Very happy with that. I've also gone ahead and pre-installed the drawer runners underneath as well. It's there for that table that's going to slide out below this main bench unit. I've also gone ahead and removed the locking mechanism from the, when you're looking at it, the right-hand runner, the same as those main ones under there as well. So just like the main bench, we can slide this under bench table out with one hand. So now it's just a matter of getting the slide out kitchen position just right before screwing it in place. So got my main bench all installed and it's sliding nice and smoothly on those runners. And also it is so nice just having that locking mechanism on the one side now. So just press that one side down and the whole unit slides out just like that. It is extremely heavy duty. I used pretty much every single mounting hole on these drawer runners. Actually I used every single hole. I'm just going through now and I'm marking out exactly where I'm going to be mounting these smaller drawer runners. These are the ones that are going to sit in this way and provide us with that small bit of storage in drawer form underneath that main bench unit. And I was just seeing how they were going to work with the fridge door, and this is perfect, right? So this one's mounted there, and this is the one that if there was going to be issues, it'd be with this one. There's literally like a 1 centimeter or less gap between that drawer runner ending and the fridge opening, so everything is nice and precise. Anyway, time to get these smaller drawer runners installed. With the underbench drawer runners installed, it was on to constructing the lower slide out bench. So my first job on the list for today is to get these bench tops constructed. So I've been down to my local hardware store and I've bought a bunch of wood to complete this job. This is nice pre-oiled, pre-finished timber that looks pretty good straight out of the packet, which is a massive win, should save a bit of time. In saying that, I have also bought some timber sealer, which I might go over it with afterwards, just to really add that extra layer of moisture resistance. But other than that, should be pretty good to go. It's nice and strong, 18 mil thick, looks pretty nice, and it should be a relatively simple job. So I've cut my benches down to size, all three. You can see two here, one's on the floor down there. And I've also stained the edges in just something I had in the cupboard. It's a Black Japan interior stain. So yeah, just to make those edges look a little bit neater rather than just freshly cut wood. And the next step is going to be to seal these so I can actually use them as benches without worrying too much about spilling liquids and other bits and pieces on them. To do that, I've been down to the hardware store and I've bought monocell timber sealer. I don't really know what I'm doing. This is a bit of foreign territory to me, but it does say all purpose, so how wrong can it be? To actually apply it to these benches, I've bought one of those sample paint pot application kits, so it comes with a small foam foam roller, and the packet this comes in then becomes your little tray to pour your paint, or in this case, sealer into, and then apply it. So hopefully it goes to plan, but let's get to it. Unfortunately, I found the roller was leaving a lot of air bubbles in the sealer, so it wasn't long before my good old paintbrush was out to finish the job. So my 3 benches have now had 2 coats of sealant, and they're currently sitting on the floor over there to dry. And in front of me, there's a collection of wood that is about to be turned into some simple drawers to slide up beneath that kitchen bench. Now, I haven't made drawers for a long time, and the set I did make about 10 years ago was pretty rough to say the least. So I'm sort of starting a bit blind here, and I'm just trying to make it up as I go along. My rough plan of attack is to use this 6mm ply. I'm going to create 2 drawer bases with this. The same 6mm ply will be used to create the sides and the rear of the drawer. Then to join these pieces together, I've just bought this 15 by 15mm like box wood from Bunnings as well. And I'm essentially going to create a bit of an internal frame for this drawer that I can then screw the base up into this, and the sides and the rear also into these same kind of beams that will run down the sides of the drawer. I am so tired. This has been a really big project, and it's another late night, so I'm using the quieter tools to not disturb the neighbors and trying to be a good neighbor. Drawer number 1 is finished. I'm actually really happy with how this has turned out. It's actually way more sturdy than I expected. I wasn't sure how I was going to go with the thin, just using only 6mm plywood, but honestly, that's really, really sturdy, so I'm very happy with that. My little frame has been working quite well. However, the front piece I thought I carefully measured out is definitely the wrong size. So I'm not sure how I did that, although I did go and quickly give this a test slide in the canopy, and it fits in perfectly, which is good. Anyway, I'm gonna knock this second drawer together and then go to bed. So both my drawers are now complete, and my bench tops are also dried and looking quite nice too. That seal gave them quite a nice shine, so yeah, quite happy with how they've all turned out. All 3 are ready to go. The next step now is to go and make sure they actually fit in the car. Woohoo, everything fits. I'm breathing a bit of a sigh of relief. These drawers underneath the bench do not have much clearance at all, which was by design to try and maximize the space. But seeing it in real life, I'm like, there might actually be a chance for there to be problems here. Essentially, right now they're sitting on that very lower slide out bench, and there's about 5mm clearance on top of those drawers before this top support beam. So I'm gonna have to mount them to the runners somewhere like within that space so they don't catch on either the top or the bottom. With 5mm to do so, that's not a lot of room, but it does mean we're absolutely maximizing this space. This is a pretty compact unit, and it's gonna be housing obviously 2 large bench tops and 2 storage drawers as well. So if it all pans out, I'll be incredibly happy, but the next step for me is going to be to actually mount those drawers to the runners so I know there's going to be any issues or not. There we go, bench tops are installed, the drawers are installed on the front. Stage 1 is officially complete and I'm pretty happy with that. So we've got bench top 1, bench top 2, little drawers underneath that main bench as well, which have a surprisingly large capacity, if I can find the handle. And they just fit underneath. There's just enough clearance between the frame of the top bench and this bench underneath the bottom. So very happy. And I'm actually gonna leave that build there for now because I'm about to head off and do the Holland track with Nathan from Exploring Oz, which I am pumped to do. And it's gonna be nice to test out this kitchen in its current form before I've added those finishing touches. But I'm happy to have gotten it at least to a functional stage where it's gonna make this adventure a lot of fun. Anyway, I'm gonna pack this back up and get on the road. So it's been about a week and I'm now back from the Holland track, which was an epic adventure. We had the cameras rolling for the whole trip too, so stay tuned for those episodes coming out shortly. But we're back in the garage again today to hopefully finish off this project once and for all. There's essentially 3 main parts left to this kitchen build. The first is some nice simple carpeted infill panels for behind these drawers to make them look a lot neater when those drawers are extended, not just a void that goes in behind the kitchen. The second is going to be to construct some face panels for both of these sliding modules. So essentially just 2 carpeted panels, one for the smaller table and one for the bigger bench unit, both with pull handles to make pulling out the bench nice and easy and also make it look a fair bit neater so you can't see all this framework behind. And then the very last stage is going to be to construct the main kitchen bench that goes around the outside of this whole slide out module. Now obviously I've already constructed that third and final bench and I've also cut out a bunch of connected pieces as well and put the joiners aside. So that should be just a matter of bashing those joiners together to build the frame and then bolting it in place and we should be done. So I'm excited, can't wait to see this all finished. And I'm going to kick off today's project with the easiest of the lot, which is going to be those 2 carpeted infill panels. To attach that carpet to those wooden panels, I've been using this synthetic grass adhesive just from Bunnings. I've seen it recommended online all the time for attaching marine carpets, so I figured this was the project to give it a go, and I must say it works incredibly well. No other adhesive can really give you that nice tight wrap around these corners here. So very happy with that. I literally just lathered it all onto the carpeted side or the back of the carpet and then stuck my wood in place. And it seems to work the best when you press really, really firmly. So I waited for it to get tacky and then I actually chucked it in the vise on these larger bits to really clamp it in place. Popped clamps here, there and everywhere, wherever I could kind of get them to hold it in place, and I'm very happy with the result. So the next step, I'm just gonna go around and trim all these excess bits off from around the edges. And then my panels should be good to go. With the front panels attached, it's time to build a simple frame for the outermost bench to sit on. And once again, I'm using my step drill bit to enlarge the holes for better access. Oh, well, after a lot of late nights and a lot of trips down to the hardware store, my slide-out kitchen setup is officially complete and I'm so excited to start using this thing. So let's slide it open and take a look at the finished product. So stage one of this slide-out kitchen is a nice big bench top. You can never have too much bench space, and this should give us lots of room for just general meal prep, or essentially just using it for whatever we want, really. It's on those 227 kilo runners, so very, very heavy duty. You can see my whole canopy rocking around when I put weight on it, so very happy with that. And then to have yet more bench space, on the end here we have another slide-out bench, a little bit smaller, but still a really nice usable amount of space. That's on 125 kilo runners, so also very heavy duty. Honestly, we shouldn't have any dramas storing pretty much anything we want on either of these two benches. And the best part about this one is it's so nice and low. In a lot of ways, this was kind of the starting point for this slide out design. So wanted a nice low bench space that pretty much anyone can access conveniently, and I think this definitely achieves that. And to tell you what, I'm so happy that I went to the hassle of modifying these drawer runners, so we only have to use the one to actually push it in or open it up again. It just makes this process so much more convenient, and you can also actually use that grab handle to put some force on to open that drawer runner up as well, rather than having to use both and kind of grip those to slide it out. And then of course, under this kitchen bench, we also have our two smaller storage drawers. Now, I reckon these are gonna be incredibly handy. Plenty of storage space in those. They actually turned out bigger than I expected, and I'm quite happy with the finish as well. Nice, neat carpeted front. They're just constructed with 7mm plywood, but yeah, they're more solid than I expected them to be. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of this canopy fit out project. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a really fun project for me to undertake. I was really looking forward to it. I mean, it took longer than I expected, but I'm pretty proud of the results. If you guys are ever thinking of building something similar for your setup, let me know if you're interested in seeing those kind of like mock-up designs that I do before I undertake projects like this. They're definitely not professional, but I'm more than happy to upload those somewhere to share with you guys. If you're interested, just let me know. So the canopy setup is certainly coming along nicely. We've got that insulation done, the fridge is installed, the slide-out kitchen build is now complete, but there's still a lot more projects on the list. So in the next episode, we're going to be tackling the entire 12-volt system from scratch. We're talking big batteries, inverters, 12-volt hubs, a lot of wiring, lighting throughout, switch panels, power outlets, and more. It's going to be a massive project, but it's another one that I'm really looking forward to. So stay tuned for that coming out soon. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. I don't really know what I'm doing. This is a bit of foreign territory to me. So I'm going to be using a tool that I've got no experience using. So I'm not really too sure how to do this. Not too sure how it's going to turn out, but that is my rough plan of attack. Or I might just completely destroy my 180 draw runners. That's also a possibility. So I'm sort of starting a bit blind here, and I'm just trying to make it up as I go along.